here we go then. Kit. This is what it looks like. This has just come straight out the bag, straight from Postman Pat, and I'm already overheating, so it's serving its purpose. It's incredibly warm. I had a good look over this, and it seems to be, in my opinion, very well put together. It's all double stitched, reinforced sort of hems on the shoulders, so it shouldn't fall apart. Yeah, I'm quite pleased. Quite honestly, for me, I normally take medium things, but sizing is becoming a real pain. Some companies, to avoid embarrassment to their customers, have increased the size of the products but kept the labelling the same. So they're a little more, what's the polite version, generous in their proportions. Whereas this strikes me as an old-fashioned medium, so it fits me quite tight. Now I'm about, what am I? I'm about 5'6", 5'7" maybe, so I'm quite a short person. I would say I'm not a slim fit, but then I'm not a giant either. I'm a bit porky round the middle, you know, it's called being nearly 70. This fits comfortably, yeah. The next size up would have been large. That would have probably fitted me just as well, but with the range of stuff that they've got, the increase in size also increases length and sleeve length. Now these sleeves are fine for me, and the length of the product is fine for me. It's a little tight, but then, as I said, it's brand new, it hasn't been washed yet. So I'm quite pleased with the way the logo's come out. I was expecting it to be that side, but it's that side. Which side it's on I don't really think makes a lot of difference, and I'm not doing them all again with the logo on the other side. It's not worth it. The logo's there, the words are big enough to read, but it's not obtrusive, you know, it's not shouting loud. Plain on the back, I'll do a twirl, yes, and modelling the new range is our Roger. Any larking around. Right, that's enough of this nonsense. Let's get on and look at some plants or something. Okay, today I thought we'd have a look at the Tolumnias. They're in various stages. A couple are what I would call recovering. A couple have ceased to be in the recent past. But what I've got I'm keeping. Very few of them have got tags on them. Massive remounting exercise some time ago. Tags got muddled, so I'd rather there wasn't one than have the wrong one, if you see what I mean. Could be building up hopes for something special as the spike develops, only to find it's something else. So I'm waiting for them to bloom to identify them. Any that have bloomed before I've got a picture of, and once they bloom again, that's it, I've got them. You see what I mean? Although some of them have no names, they're just hybrids, so you know. We will see what we can do as time progresses. I would say by the middle of next year they'll probably all have bloomed by then. Right, Tolumnias, they come from the Caribbean area, so I think it's called the Caribbean Basin, but basically a lot of them are island dwellers, there being a lot of islands in that area and round the coastal areas of that particular part of the world. Almost across the board, the species come from areas that are not far from the sea, so they are subject to constant breezes, and that helps with something I'll come on to in a minute, and also quite high light levels, in some cases found growing in full sun. But with those breezes, they don't get too hot. Yeah, and they have also evolved leaves, which we'll have a look at some in a minute, to actually dispel heat and stop losing too much moisture if they do get caught in the sun. So they have evolved in a way that is adapted to how they grow. And how they grow is they are a special type of epiphyte. We normally think of epiphytes growing on trees, on branches, on trunks and things like this. These are twig epiphytes. They're very rarely found growing on anything substantial. I think that's the best way to put it. They grow in amongst scrubby areas, shrubs, twiggy bits like that, and their roots often run along the bottom of the twigs. And again, there's a good reason for that. First of all, it keeps the roots out of the sun because they're underneath the little twigs. And in addition to that, any morning dew that forms runs round to the bottom of the twig, which is where the roots are. So they're quite clever little bunnies, aren't they? But the one thing they will not tolerate for any length of time is soggy roots. They do like a daily wet-dry cycle. That's how they would naturally grow. And some days the only moisture they would get is that morning dew. But the air is not dry. You know, if you're not far from the coast and there's breezes, there's moisture in the air. So they're never sort of bone dry, if you know what I mean. They do get that morning dew virtually on a daily basis. And of course it does rain now and again when they get absolutely soaked. So that's the sort of environment you would find the species in. Like most things, as the hybridization programs develop, I suspect that some of the more complex hybrids are less fussy. That's what happens with a lot of orchids. What's it called? Hybrid vigor or something. But it just means that, you know, some species are very fussy about their environment, and if you deviate from that environment, they start to go downhill. Tolumnias are pretty sturdy beasties, providing you look after those roots. Now those roots will grow on anything. They'll grow on nothing. But they seem to do a lot better if they've got something to grab hold of. But it doesn't seem to matter what it is. They will... What have I got here? You could stick a Tolumnea in there with no media and it would attach to the pot and grow. It would grow on something like that. Something already has. So they can grow on tiny little clay pots. They don't need a big one. It's only to hold the roots. You could put some chunks of lava rock in there or some pebbles. They'll attach to that. But they do like to attach to things. You can grow them in those open baskets. Ugh. Not a giant one like this, but something like this, but a much smaller version. They'll sit in there, they'll attach to all the inside and the outside, they'll be quite happy. Again, you could chuck some lava rock or some pebbles or some large pieces of bark. It doesn't really matter what it is. But the important thing is, when you pour water over them, it goes straight through and out the bottom. That's the important bit. No sogginess, don't leave them in a wet environment. That's the thing that will take the roots down. Some do apparently seem to be a bit more tolerant, you know, but I'd err on the side of caution and don't keep those roots wet for any length of time. Preferably a daily wet-dry cycle seems to do them good. Right, I'm going to pick these up one at a time, have a quick look at them, chat, and then hang them back up. The only reason they're down here is I've just finished watering them, and I put them back last because of where they go. If I put them back too early in my watering cycle, they're in the way, and I keep knocking them about with other plants, so they always go back last. The reason being the actual place where I keep them. No name. Now this one is coming on okay. That's not a bad plant. It's got a couple of new growths around this side, one going up the back there, one coming out the side. It's got some growths maturing, so it's coming on. It has bloomed. I can see stumpy bloom spikes where they've been cut. So yeah, this one's coming on, whatever it is. Not all Tolumnias are large. Some of them are quite genuine miniatures. They are very, very tiny, some of them. And there are a couple of the species that have creeping rhizomes, and they're a pain. So like that tiny little growth up the back, that in some species that will be classed as a full-size fan, and then a shoot will come out and grow 2 or 3 inches long, and it'll grow another fan on the end of that. And now just progress that in your mind, and yeah, they're not that easy to look after, those types. Most of them have a base, and all of the fans come out from around and within that base. That's a normal pattern of growth. So that one's coming on. You should see some blooms again once we get some more growths maturing. None of which are doing that at the moment. The ones that are mature have already bloomed. So we're waiting on possibly this one down the bottom and the 2 new ones up the side. So sometime down the line, and that's the reason I put these up last.
is they live on this wire. Yeah, so every time I get a plant down off of there, they get bashed. So they always come off first and go back last. That are my theory, and it seems to work. Oops, there's one on the floor. Right, this is a recovering one. We have got new roots. They've pushed down through the moss and out onto the mount and into that little cubby hole down the bottom there. So this one's now got more than enough roots for the size of the plant. Its latest new growth isn't good, but at least it pushed one up, which then produced some new roots. So recovering, but not there yet. It's got some work to do. So probably needs another season or part season to get going. Right, next, these are not coming off in any order. Let's get the one off the floor. That one has got a tag, I can see it. Right, what have we got then? I'm pretty sure that's one of what I call the Christmas bunch. I bought 5 off a friend at Christmas. I haven't got many survivors out of that 5, but this one obviously is. And this one is growing. It's produced 2 fans. They're not brilliant, but they're there. And it's produced some roots. So it's coming on. I wouldn't say it's still in a state of recovery, but it's not growing well yet. But it is coming on. So as opposed to some of its sisters and brothers that are long since gone. So that's that one. I suppose we could have a look at the tag and look what we may get one day. That is a very attractive Tolomnea. So hopefully we'll see that one day down the line. Jarrac Rainbow Soft Pink. Perhaps one day, maybe. So that's that. Right. Now we get on to this one. And although this one looks like it's in a state of recovery, it's not. It's a miniature. We've got 1, 2, 3 new growths coming on that one. I'm not sure that one's ever bloomed. No tag, typical. So I'm looking forward to see which one of mine it is. But if it's a non-bloomer, it's going to be difficult. So I won't have a picture to compare it with. But this one's coming on nicely. Its roots have extended all into the little crevices. Yeah, so it's not a bad little root system on that one now. And with 3 new growths, there'll be more roots. So he's coming on nicely. And as I said, that's not recovering, it's a miniature. No doubt it will have tiny little flowers, but that's not always the case. What else have we got then? Come on, out you come. This one looks like it's got a tag as well. Jarrac Flyer Red Butterfly, I believe that's one of mine, even though you can see from the tag it was the same as the one of the Christmas ones. That's because they came from the same place. That is the nature of those tags. It's Orchid Diffusion, French nursery, I believe. So what's this one doing then? Well, this one is growing quite nicely. It's pushed up a couple of new growths. It's got another new one coming up at the bottom there. So this one's coming on. It has got spike stumps on it, so it has bloomed. But whether those were there when I got it or not, I'm pretty sure that has bloomed. For me, I mean. It obviously has. I can see the bloom stumps. I can see at least 2, 3 there. So it's bloomed in the past. The size of these fans is not going to change much given that they bloomed at that size. So that's probably the size the fans are always going to be, which means this one here is maturing. So that could bloom soon. So coming on, that one. No worries with that one, that's for sure. What have we got? Now what have we got? Now we're starting to get to the bigger stuff. Right, this one here technically is 2 plants because the centre of the plant died. But luckily, at that point, it had already set off in 2 different directions. So it's now 2 plants, really. I doubt if there's any join left in the middle. And the one on the right doesn't seem to want to grow upright. It seems to want to stay permanently upside down. Its latest growth shot downwards, which meant the poor old spike that came out from the base had to promptly turn upwards. And that's got buds forming, so that's going to be in bloom soon. And then the other part of the plant set off upwards, Now that also has a spike on its latest growth, pushing on, no buds yet, and no tag. So I will be interested to see which one that is. That has bloomed for me, so we will get an ID for that one eventually. That's going to be the next one to bloom, I suspect, because the buds are forming. They look a bit yellowish to me, rather than pinkish. There's always, as the buds start to form, you'll get a tinge of colour, which is a hint of what's to come. And I've never had Tolumnia buds blast, before anybody asks. But I suspect you could if you treated them badly while in that bud stage. Now this one's just going mad. This is a larger one. Obviously you can see the size of the fans, much bigger there compared with my hand. And this has currently got 3 spikes at the moment. So most of the new growths, probably all of them come to think of it, are currently in spike. So this is heading off in 3 directions. I can see one new growth with no... Oh no, that growth has already bloomed. Yeah, so this one is coming on nicely. And this one is Tolumnia Peach. And that is one of my favourites, a real colour changer that. I forget which way round it is. I think it opens quite a dominant yellow with a little frill round the edge. And then that expands to the peachy colour. So looking forward to that, and with 3 spikes, and they're all about at the same development stage, so they'll probably all be in bloom at the same time. And if that happens, that's going to the very next Orchid Society meeting that I can get it to, provided they last long enough. So that's a good one. That does well for me, that one. Tolumnia Peach. Couple more to go, and we're done. This is another one of the larger ones, and this one hasn't bloomed for a while. No tag on this one. Oh, it's got a spike. That wasn't there last time I looked. So that growth, which has had some rot in the centre, it's lost its centre leaf. But luckily the growth is more than strong enough to not worry about that, and still capable of blooming. Probably got some water trapped on a cold night or something. But anyway, this has got quite a few other growths that are matured and unbloomed. So we could see some more spikes coming on this one soon. Let's see if I can get the camera. It's difficult when you're holding something. The one sticking up in the air now is a new growth that hasn't bloomed. So that's quite a strong growth. Given the size of that one, it's about the same. So that could bloom soon. And then we've got... that one hanging straight downwards now, that one hasn't bloomed, and the one sticking out to the right hasn't bloomed yet. So we've got other growths on here, and obviously in its mindset and its dear little plant mind, it's thinking it's about time it bloomed. So we could see some more on that one soon. That'll be good. Multiple spikes, always like that sort of thing. Come on, get back up where you go. And the last one over here, well, nearly the last one, there's one I nearly forgot. This one's been struggling for a while. This is Jarrac Flyer Black Magic, another one from the French nursery, but this is one of mine. It's pushed out quite a strong new growth recently, 2 in fact, one of which has bloomed, and it's now starting another one and really starting to push some roots. So this one's coming on. I wouldn't say it's growing well yet, because it did look better than that once. So it's had a problem, and now it's getting over it. And it looks like it's doing it quite well. So that one's coming on. Again, looking at the picture, quite an attractive Tolumnia. That's actually a deeper red than that when it comes out. Its name is Black Magic. You know, I just don't think it's a very good photo. So that's that one. And the only other one, which doesn't live up here with this lot, because it's actually in bloom. So this is, I put stuff here. This is a jumble at the moment because I'm in the middle of watering and stuff's still dripping. But I put stuff up here when it's in bloom so I can see it from in the house. And this is... Right, this is one of the Christmas ones. So in theory, I've got 2 out of 5 left. And this one isn't doing too bad. It's recovered-ish. I wouldn't say it's there yet. It hasn't got what I'd call a brilliant root system, but it did grow some new ones, and it's pushed up a fan big enough to be happy to bloom. So we did get some blooms on this one. If this spike starts to branch as these blooms fade, I'll take it off, simply because it's not a strong plant yet. But I think that one's going to recover okay out of the Christmas lot. And that's got an attractive set of colours, because it's got two different reds. It's got a deep sort of burgundy red and then a different coloured red in the centre with that nice yellow heart shape. Well, I don't even know if that's in focus at the moment, but that yellow shape forms a nice heart. That's quite attractive. Doesn't quite meet at the bottom, but then it does on some. So slight variation on the blooms, but yeah, it's an attractive bloom, and then little white tinges on some of the petals. So attractive. Right, so that's a look and a chat about the Tolumnias. None of them will take up a lot of space, quite honestly. Most of them are small. You've seen some of my, well, hang on, if I get back up a bit here. Just going along now, I mean, that's the size of the light there. You can see from small up to some of the larger ones, but they don't get too much larger than that. Yeah, so you're not looking at huge plants. And certainly if you grow them mounted or hanging from somewhere, you can squash an awful lot in a very small space. So you can have lots of different colours, yeah. Basically the shape of the Tolumnia blooms doesn't change that much, although some of the species do have some weird looking blooms. Not weird enough to be not recognisable, but different. Some of them have got tiny little sepals and petals, and they look a bit out of proportion compared with the bit down the bottom, but they don't vary that much in size, quite honestly. They're all a very similar size, so you're looking at number of blooms you get on a spike can vary considerably, but the size of the actual bloom stays relatively constant, so that's about a normal size for a Tolumnia bloom. So they're not huge, but they often make up for it with weight of numbers and colours, you know. Everything from, I'm not sure if there is a pure white one, but there's ones with an awful lot of white. I'm not sure there's a pure white one, I haven't seen one. And then they head off from the whites through all the pinks, out into the reds or out into the purplish. I don't think I've ever seen a true purple one, but I've seen ones with hints of purple. And then heading off in the other direction through all the yellows and the oranges, and again back round into the bright reds. So good variety of colours and some good mixes of colours in the blooms. Most of them tend to have two dominant colours and hints of a third, but some of them do have quite a few colours on them, and it's mainly fringes, yeah, where you get a fringe round here that gradates inwards to a different colour and then yet another colour in the centre. So they can vary quite a bit. But they're rewarding little plants on the grounds. They really don't take a lot of looking after. I know I'm making it sound that they do, but they don't. All they need is that fast wet dry cycle and some good light and something to hang on to, and they should flourish. That's about it. They're not high feeders. The one thing I did say I would show was their adaptation of the leaves. These are triangular in cross-section, or almost, and fleshy. These do not squash. They're like a succulent, like a cactus. These are not flimsy little leaves. They're very, very strong. I'm squeezing that leaf quite hard, and there's no give in it. So that's their adaptation, so that they don't lose their moisture, like with succulents, cactuses, things like that. A way of hanging on to the moisture when it gets a bit warm and they haven't had much moisture lately. So yeah, Tolumnias and stuff. See you next time.